Hello, everyone. Welcome to another expedition. Craig, I had to say it that way just for your purposes, man. Y'all will understand here in a little bit. Welcome to another edition. We are Through a Therapist's Eyes, where I am a substance abuse and mental health counselor. He is a unbeatable mind life coach. You can find out what we've got going on throughatherapistseyes.com. And Mr. Graves, I guess we got wininyourmind.com, right? How's that thing going?
It's going great, man. It's going good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome back, man. We hadn't had you for a couple weeks. You missed LaVon. That was an awesome thing on Colts. The recovery. We had her back. She was cool.
I haven't had a chance to listen, but I did know that was the case.
Yeah, that was. And what was the one before that, Neil? I can't even remember the other one that he missed. What the heck did we do? We're all failing. They're all blending. Well, it's on the list, I guess. That's going to bother me now. You're going to have to look that up, man. I don't know. But anyway, we are here with BetterHelp.com helping us out. You can check it out on Through a Therapist's Eyes. Click the counseling tab. They're still sponsoring us, helping us out. You can have therapy from your very own home. Guys, this is the human emotional experience. So we're going to figure this out together, like really, actually, in real time. We've got some emotional experiences, I guess you'd say, Craig, going on. We have some show transitions. The show here is named Why Is Change So Hard? Right? So we have some things to let people know that we're changing around. I don't know what you want to say about your changes and whatnot. I think I'm just going to throw it over to you and see what you want to tell people.
Yeah, I don't know if there's much to say or what you guys have said so far, but I've decided to step away from the podcast and just focus on my business. And so I don't know. Have you told what the plan is or anything like that?
Nothing at all.
Okay. Yeah, so I think I'll do this. I'll do this show, and I think one more, and then there'll be a rotating number of co-hosts. Is that correct, Chris?
Yes, guest co-host concept.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Yep. So you're going to be doing more focus on coaching, and you know what I thought I'd tell you, man, is well, first of all, on a serious note, really, no, I think I've told you before on air. I mean, it's been awesome to be doing this with you. There's a certain amount of sadness for sure. You know, guys who'll stick around, and I'll explain that in a second. But it's been awesome to kind of kick this off with you, ride with you, kind of, watch your awareness of mental health stuff grow, I think, a lot through the last year and a half that we've done this. It's pretty cool. I've truly enjoyed working with you. It's been really cool.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun and a learning experience for me for sure. So yeah, I appreciate it.
And then I was going to tell you, man, we got to kick your butt to the curb because you don't really fit the mold anymore.
What are you talking about?
You don't fit the mold anymore. You know too much now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the idea was for me to be kind of a person who came in and didn't know anything, right?
Yeah.
And, I think I've learned quite a bit over the past couple of years.
Yeah. You really, I mean, that's a little bit of a joke. I mean, we do have a guest co-host concept that we are going to be running with. Neil, can you grab my phone for me? Appreciate it. We're going to have, 5 or 6 different people that have kind of signed on that are going to be kind of guest co-hosts, and what their kind of role will kind of be is very similar, Craig. Like they're not really mental health professionals. We do have actually one mental health professional that is going to be joining us, and that'll be it. That'll be an interesting thing. It'll be like 2 therapists talking on those particular episodes. And so we're every month we're going to have a different person is the plan. Most of the people that we've got lined up, they're kind of like you used to be. They're not mental health professionals, and they kind of hear what the audience is hearing, and we kind of converse back and forth and, pick their brain for what they're hearing on the concepts that we're talking about. So I'm getting behind it. I'm sad about Craig kind of, jumping out and doing different things, but, I'm really kind of excited about the energy that we're going to have because we got some really fun people that I think are going to be joining us.
Yeah, and sometimes change is a catalyst, so you never know what might happen, man.
Well, we'll talk about that tonight. Change as a catalyst. Boom! He nailed it right from the get-go. That's a good one. One of them actually is my editor. I'm looking forward to that. She's committed. I think I can make that public. She's committed, and she'll be one of them. So that's going to be super cool.
Yeah, that's going to be good. I know Courtney, and I had some communications with her since the show, and I think that'll be fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got another announcement that is actually pretty cool as well. We are going to be staying with you at Through a Therapist's Eyes for sure. A little bit different forms, but we're going to be having fun just along the way and doing some of the same things that has landed us as being nominated as top mental health awareness podcasts, one of the top 20 in 2021. How about that?
That's
I didn't
awesome.
even tell you
Good.
about that, man.
I think I heard you mention it on the mastermind call
Did I
the
mention
other
it?
day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or somewhere I heard you mention it.
Yeah.
I had to be there. I hadn't talked to you otherwise.
Pretty neat. Pretty progressive found us. They seem to be kind of a women's issue site. We welcome them aboard. We definitely talk about a lot of things that affect women, but men as well in mental health. That's for dang sure. But they found us and they put us as one of the top mental health awareness podcasts. I thought that was pretty cool. Still also in the announcements part here, I want to document and highlight still Mr. Chris Lowranch. You remember that guy, right?
I definitely remember Chris.
Dude, you've been watching that Facebook stuff, man. I see your likes all the time.
Yeah, it's awesome. I
know
Chris. I've known Chris since high school. He's a year older than me. We went to the same high school, and his son is my daughter's age, and so they were in the same at school and stuff like that. And I've been watching. I think it's awesome. Not only is he getting to see a lot of cool stuff, and he's getting to meet a lot of great people. And man, he's bringing a lot of. He's already met his financial goal.
I know, right?
And he's only in Idaho.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's in the Facebook page or group, I think it is, continues to grow. And man, if anybody hears this, follow that page. I think it's a penny for their thoughts.
Exactly what it is. So you jump on Facebook, you go to the groups, and you have a search there, and you type in a penny for their thoughts.
Yeah.
And it brings it right up. And the emblem is a map of the United States with the route that he's taken. And for any of you who don't know what we're talking about, you really need to go back and check the shows that we did with Chris, because he talked about his experiences with 28 years, 3 months and 7 days, I think is exactly what he said. Does that sound right to you?
Well, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of policing. He was in our SWAT team, and he talked about his emotional experiences. One of the big things I picked up on him talking about is the little pieces that they all pick up. And we talked a lot about trauma, and he's riding cross country for police mental health awareness and suicide prevention, because of the suicidal reality with police officers is very, very strong, as we've talked about. And so we really, I wanted Through a Therapist Size Tribe to support this guy. He's about 1.6 thousand on his Facebook group page, and I want that to bump up on the count of Through a Therapist Size people to 2,000.
Yeah, you ought to share it on your page in case people are looking for it. And then
we're working out some Facebook stuff, actually.
They can find it really easily. But it's really cool. He's doing a Facebook Live at the end of each day, talking about how that day went and people he's met along the way. And, it sounds like he's met some amazing folks who've friended him and helped him when he needed it and had a meal with him or whatever. And it's really been cool.
Let me ad-lib with you for a second, because I've thought about it, Craig. And you know what I haven't heard much on there, though? And I'm gonna share my apprehension. The only thing I haven't heard on there is kind of discussion about, there's been awareness of Blue Help, right? For sure. There's been great donation levels. I mean, I'm stoked for that. And there's been mention of, trail angels is what they're called. People, nice people, meeting good people along the way that are absolutely helping him. I mean, the dude needs a hamburger, dude needs a wheel spoke fixed, he needs a place to stay. He's had showers, so he's been meeting great people. But you know what I haven't heard? A whole lot of talk about mental health and actually the emotions of, the experience and people and things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I hear what you're saying, but I'm not sure that was, he's pointing people to Blue Help, and I know the lady from Blue Help is going to go out there and they're going to do a Facebook Live together, and she's going to talk about where the money he's raised is going and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's what
I assume some stuff like that's coming, but I'm not. And I know he's set out to bring awareness to law enforcement and mental health, but I don't expect him to talk about mental health every day he's on the road out there.
Definitely not every day, but I tell you what, I actually kind of want to pop a question. I'm debating, thinking about it. How's your thoughts going about policing throughout the drive? I am apprehensive at best to do that, but I'm really curious about it. And I just want to point out my own emotion with that, because that's part of a bit of the issue. How do you deal with that? How do you address that? How do you move through that? It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, I would imagine that when he's on that ride, though, he's thinking more about getting to where he's got to go and where he's going to sleep that night and what kind of food he's going to be eating. I'm sure he's pondering those kind of things versus some of the stuff you're talking about right away.
We're going to get Mr. Lowranch back on the show, and I I'll wager a $5 bet differing that.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I mean,
Because when you got a lot of time to think, and I used to ride bikes. As a matter of fact, he's motivating me. I might get my bicycle riding back together again, get in a little bit of shape, kind of get back into that. Because when you're riding, dude, your mind has all kinds of awesome think time. I used to think some of my greatest thoughts riding.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I'm sure that's the case, but I think probably a lot of time, especially where he's at right now, is focused on the ride. I know he had a 3,000. I think he had a 3,000-foot climb today.
Oh, yeah.
And then the next 25 miles, I think, is downhill.
Yep.
So I'm sure he'll be focused on what he's doing.
Yeah. Well, you need to be.
Absolutely.
That's serious riding. That ain't simple stuff. But it was just something I wondered about. I wanted to see what you thought about that. So let's get to it with, what makes change so hard? I think there's a lot of things that go into really people's psyche when they're dealing with transitions and change, and maybe we could throw in what we're doing through a therapist house and the changes that you've got going on and what we're doing differently and how that factors in, because I feel like people really struggle inherently when change is happening, or especially when it's forced upon them. People don't adjust well to that. People don't react well to that. I want to submit to you that they struggle greatly with that. What do you think about that?
Oh, I agree, 100%. Yeah, I think change, especially when it's forced on somebody, is not easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Neil, he's forcing change on us. Did you pick up on that?
But like we touched on earlier, it also opens the door for opportunities and stuff like that. So change is not always a bad thing. I think that a lot of times we don't like it when it comes along, especially unexpectedly or if it's forced on us. But, a lot of times change can open the door for opportunities.
Yeah, we're going to do a segment here tonight really on revamping the way that we think about it, because, look at number 3 there, right? Like, of course, change can be redefined to be a good thing. And we're going to cover as to why that's the case. So I couldn't agree more. As a matter of fact, I mean, one of the things that's the worst thing about, not changing is what everybody hates, which is stagnation. I mean, you do the same thing over and over again, and I'll say it now. I was going to say it then. In AA, they talk about the insanity of life, right? Doing the same thing, expecting different results. We've all probably heard that one way or another, or at some point in our travels. That is for real. I mean, you want something to be different, you're going to have to change to be different, right? I mean, it's inherent.
Yeah, I think you're right there, but I think a lot of people don't want things to be different.
Right.
They don't want things to be different. And so when things change, it creates fear and unease because, hey, I had a pretty good thing going here, and now I got to change. Now I got to do something different,
I think people want things to be different but don't want to change. Is that crazy?
No, I think that's probably a true statement too, but I think some people don't want things to change, If I'm in a job making good money, and I go home and have a good meal and sit on the couch and watch Netflix until I go to bed and get up. Some people are completely happy with that. And when that job goes away or they get a report from the doctor about, they're pre-diabetic or whatever, then they have to change. There's changes forced on them. But I think a lot of people hit a comfort zone and they don't want to change.
But they want things to be different.
Not necessarily. I mean, sometimes they do. Sometimes people look in the mirror and say, you know what, I'm 50 pounds overweight. I got to make a change. I got to do something different. I got to make a change.
Right.
And sometimes they look in the mirror, they're 50 pounds overweight, and they don't care. Then their doctor says, hey, Mr. Smith, if you don't do something different, you're going to have a heart attack in a couple of years. Then they have to do something different.
Budget, money.
Yeah. Whatever it is, lose a job, whatever it is.
Change is hard, for sure. I wrote in a word, why is it so hard, fear? I think that when I was really kind of thinking a lot about this topic, that to me is the biggest component that people struggle with. I think it's pretty almost across the board that people really kind of want things to be different, particularly when they're not happy. But you equate change with fear, and the amygdala almost does that. We'll highlight that in a second. Fear drives people's experience when things change. How does that statement fit?
I think it's spot on.
Yeah. You know, fear of the unknown, fear of unknown outcomes, fear of, what happens if it's going to be worse. Hopelessness and helplessness kicks in with people's just behavioral or life change or circumstances.
I mean, what other reason would somebody not like change? I mean, what other emotion would drive the dislike of change besides fear? I mean, and that's a serious question. I don't know. Are there other emotions that would cause me not to want things to change? I mean, it's fear of loss, fear of something being worse than it already is, or something or good. Maybe you got a good thing going on, and you're afraid it's going to be worse if there's a change.
Yeah, I think there are. I feel like fear is the top of the list. But you asked me that, and I was thinking, and I was struggling. But when I did prep, and I was thinking through this in quieter moments, there are other experiences. It's a good transition. Like, the next thing that kind of came to mind is the inherent feeling that when you're changing something, you're losing something. So if you don't get in touch with the grief and the loss of what you're changing and don't deal with that, it's not really fear, but it's like you're super sad. Like, I've just lost a big piece of me. And I got a really good example of that. When oftentimes, how when it rains, it pours, and life changes and something's going on. A lot of times there's big things that change. And I remember a certain time in my life years ago, I was going through and very aware of it because of doing what I do, the grief and loss of these changes. Check it out. Lived in West Virginia all my life. I'm moving to North Carolina. Change, loss. I am now, holy crap, married, right? I have lost my identity of myself as an individual, right? Also, by the way, I'm changing my employment. Nothing's familiar for me now. I don't know what I'm doing in this new job. Fear there for sure, but I also lost the things that I was really enjoying doing. And I remember coming to North Carolina, spending those first several months down here, and dude, I had to go home. And I'll never forget. Remember Chowabunga, that song? Chowabunga, you knock me down and I'll get up again.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I jammed that thing in my car when I was driving back home just to reattach with West Virginia and all the things that I knew driving through Morgantown and going home to Wheeling. And it rejuvenated me. And it helped me remember, like, okay, things are different. I definitely went through some losses, but they were all things that I wanted, right? I chose these changes, and it all worked out well. But the main point here is there is grief and loss when something is different.
Well, you said something interesting there. If you choose change, though, I mean, the whole thing is why is change hard, right? But if you're choosing those changes, is it really hard?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think so. An alcoholic who's choosing to get sober, absolutely.
Yeah.
Somebody who's choosing to change their diet to be well, psychologically, our cognition doesn't matter when it comes to what our emotional parts of our brain are doing. And so even when change is chosen, the emotional part of your brains, the emotional parts, I should say, of your brain, they don't care if you liked it or if you didn't choose this or not. It's still like the brain is interpreting fear. It's interpreting loss.
So do you think there's definitely got to be some differences, all right? If you choose change versus it being forced on you, I would think that there's differences in the
probably different dynamics a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So if I'm choosing to get healthy, I'm choosing to get a better diet, and I'm choosing to quit drinking so much, that's different than the doctor saying, "Hey, you better do this or you're going to die."
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that I'm thinking about as you're saying, and I think the emotions of it, though, probably aren't felt so differently, though you probably have a little bit easier time with your cognition thinking through it, saying, wait, it's probably easier to see the positive outcomes than, the negative outcomes, but still, the feelings, when you're feeling fearful, you're feeling fearful, period.
Yeah. Well, let me put it in the context of a job, right? So if I'm miserable in my job, and I think people get sometimes comfortable in misery, so they don't change. They don't change just because they're comfortable in misery. But if I don't like my job, and I decide to make a change, I can proactively go out and look for jobs, and I know I have to meet new people and get used to the new office dynamics and stuff like that. But I still got a paycheck coming in. I can accept a new position and transition over, But if the boss comes in and says, you know what, we got some cutbacks coming and you're one of them.
Ooh.
That's a different.
Gut. There's a shock factor for sure, right?
There's definitely more fear there than there is with a transition, because now I have to do something, and that paycheck might stop showing up, and then I'm afraid I might lose my house. My kids won't get to eat. I might be on the street living out of a box.
My third component here that I was brainstorming does fit more with that, and that is absolutely. You ask what else would people feel when change is happening? Fear, besides fear. Well, the grief and loss is definitely there, and then there's another thing of that you're talking more that probably happens more with that. It's a lack of control,
right?
Helplessness,
yes,
and control. Like we are not all control freaks, but we all pretty much like to feel like we're in control of our life.
Yeah.
And so when you feel helpless as triggered by a gut check like that, then you enter into like, holy crap, I don't even have control over the immediate surroundings of where I'm going to work and how I'm going to make money. And
yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
controlling things and our level of comfort is definitely something that's. I mean, this is off the topic, but we've talked about the fear. We had a show about fear, right?
We did.
And we talked about the fear of flying. So your chances of dying in a plane crash are 1 in something million.
Right.
And Neil, you can look it up if you want to. Your chances of dying in a car crash are like 1 in 77.
Right.
But when I ask people who are afraid of flying why they feel safer driving, they say, well, I feel like I'm in control when I'm driving.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
statistically, you're much safer in an airplane.
Also, the fact is, when you come into a car wreck, you ask, is everyone okay? When you come into a plane wreck, everyone asks, is anyone alive?
Yeah.
There is that too, but
yeah.
No, you're dead on, spot on. I think that's another big factor, and I think another thing is, going maybe opposite than that. When you're choosing change, I was thoughtful about. It kind of goes back to fear again, but the behavioral changes that we almost generally choose, you have a fear of failure, right? I don't want to take the risk and sign up for the gym because I won't use it. I don't keyword quote unquote trust myself in that process. And I've heard you talk about that with some of your coaching steps. Building up that courage, feeding the courage wolf is your language, right?
Yeah.
Developing that because we don't trust ourselves when we're trying to change.
Yeah.
Or engage in that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say fear of failure is a huge thing.
I got a really cool article that I want you guys to check out that I think is a big part of this. What's up, man? Why is change so hard? I was perusing around and I found I love these neurology folks, Craig, because it's such a crazy thing to study something that we don't know anything about, but we're learning. We're really learning. And they made some really interesting points where they said essentially kind of what I took from it is that our brains certainly like to survive, right, in the wild. And when uncertainty comes, change is everything uncertain, right? So when uncertainty comes, they're kind of tracking in research with neurology that we play into the fact that we experience a risk with something that changes. Maybe it's not just the way we interpret it, but our brains literally are fearful of something change, we won't survive. The storm's going to come and we're going to die. And that's cooked into our brain. We're learning a lot about the amygdala and the limbic system and the neurology that goes into that. And, dude, it's like your brain biologically, neurologically is wired to fear something being different. And I thought it was really fascinating the way they were talking about that. So check out that article for sure on our website, because that's an angle that I hadn't really thought about, the wiring that we have. And, when we talked about neurology on the show, don't quote me on numbers, but what was it like? Glenn Wild talked about it, right? But probably about a year ago now or so. You have millions or possibly trillions of neuronal process connections from the limbic system to your frontal cortex, but only like hundreds or thousands from your frontal cortex to your emotional center. So if your emotional center is running the way that you experience change, and it's bred and wired to fear dying when you change, neurologically is totally working against us when we're trying to even make a decision to change. Because again, our cognition is not our limbic system. Our brain is working that way. So doesn't that suck?
Yeah.
I mean, that's powerful.
It is.
The little neurons are working against being comfortable when things are unsettlingly uncertain around us. Mm-hmm. So we realize that that's what we're dealing with. Here towards the end, we're going to talk about how do we manage this. And that's going to be really important because it is a very powerful force that's working against us. There's a reason why we're fearful. The brain says, you might die, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. So you jumped on this off course because your coaching head works. Reframing change. You already kind of hit a little bit of it, but how do you try to reframe change when you're kind of like, in the beginning, right off the get-go, you're saying, well, it could be good, right? Yeah. So let's move on to that, right? Like, of course, change can be a good thing, but you ask, like, why and how? What says you?
Yeah, I think change a lot of time creates opportunities for things to get better or maybe be different in a good way. What's the there's a term, I think John F. Kennedy or one of these guys, I've heard it attributed to him, but crisis. I think if you break crisis down into, maybe look it up, Neil. Maybe what does crisis mean? But there's an element of opportunity when things happen and change, and that's kind of what that means.
Change equals opportunity.
Kind of like that, yeah.
Just a reframe.
Yeah, I think it's the word crisis. And in every crisis, there's.
Now that sounds familiar. Yeah.
Well, I think one of these politicians said that you have to take advantage of every crisis, but that's not what we're talking about here. Yeah, it's definitely not what we're talking about. There's a word.
Yes.
There's a quote somewhere. I think it was Kennedy who said it. And
well, that's
anyway.
That's funny as we go along talking about reframing this thing to actually a good thing and really believing in that. Successful people, I know you've read a lot about successful people. It's been an interest of yours and whatnot. Don't they pretty much to a man and a woman pretty much talk about change as a good thing?
Yeah, definitely. I've heard people say, man, getting fired from that job was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, and a lot of times we don't want the change to happen, but it turns out being a good thing for us. So, yeah, here it is, John F. Kennedy. When written in Chinese, the word crisis is composed of two characters. One represents danger and the other represents opportunity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really?
So I knew it was something like that.
Danger. The characters in Chinese have two symbols that have the combined word meaning crisis.
Yeah.
And one
symbol's danger, one's opportunity.
Represents danger. The other symbol represents that's I love language, man.
Yeah.
Language is fascinating to me too.
Yeah, I just went through an interesting thing. So I'm involved with an organization, and one of the guys in the organization ended up leaving and working on a contract basis. Now this guy's really an awesome dude, an awesome leader. We all love the guy. He's an ex-Navy SEAL. And so what the organization did is they took the work he was doing and they created 3 positions out of the one. So now you have 3 people focusing on these things that he was doing individually, which is going to create huge opportunity for the organization because now you've taken all the stuff he was having to do.
Overwhelmed, probably.
Yeah, and you've given it to 3 people who can focus on each area and really put some improvements in those 3 areas. So it's like, holy cow, he's leaving?
Right.
Yeah, and we still miss him, But on the other hand, now you got 3 people coming in who are really good at what they do, and they're focusing on these 3 areas, and, ultimately it'll be a good thing.
See, Neil, is Craig, is he really leaving? Ah. Wait a minute. We have 5 different people that are going to be focusing on.
Well, see, I mean, yeah, and then
right,
you have 5 personalities.
It's real, yeah. Absolutely.
5 different perspectives. I mean, there's lots of potential positives
Right.
of that.
Stagnation is the damning opposite to perpetuate what they call in AA the definition of insanity. And I already said that before. And I use that word really because, I mean, honestly, I kind of fight this a lot in my work in therapy with people. It's one of the reasons why it fits my personality, which is probably the biggest reason. But it's one of the reasons why when I'm working in a therapy room with people, like, I'm pretty active. I'm pretty suggestive. I'm pretty, at times, particularly in crisis, directive even. So if you're in therapy with me, you'll regularly, hopefully, get various challenges that I'll put out at people. I'll call them emotional challenges or a therapy challenge, because the enemy there is stagnation. A lot of times people come into therapy as a last resort, unfortunately, and they've been dealing with this stuff, Craig, for just years and years and years, and they haven't really realized that they've tried different things, tried everything they know, but they haven't really locked into really making differences stick, which is probably a whole other show, really. And how do we make the changes that we become willing to do to stick? But this stagnation thing, people, I guess, kind of like you say, people don't want things to be different sometimes, sort of.
Yeah.
I see that in therapy in that way with stagnation.
Yeah, I think people do get comfortable where they are, and maybe you can tell me your thoughts on this, but people actually subconsciously sabotage themselves so they'll remain at a certain place in life.
Yeah.
Things could get better, but they're comfortable here, and so on a subconscious level, they continue to bring themselves back into their sweet spot.
Well, I think honestly we go back to that neurology stuff I was just talking about. If your brain is interpreting, great, you want this to be different, we might die, so we ain't gonna do that.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you're talking about, I think. And again, that is a very, very powerful force against, making things different, thus avoiding stagnation. I was thinking about this prep, and Craig, you probably are going to remember this. What was the philosophy on, like it was a success book or somebody's process where they documented purposely putting yourself in an uncomfortable state?
That's
Yeah.
I mean, Unbeatable Mind.
Well, yeah, but
Spartan.
well, somebody beat
Lots
y'all
of
to
people,
it.
lots of people that I follow subscribe to that mentality.
All right, the specific thing doesn't come to mind because we talked about it at one point, probably a couple years ago.
Yeah, I just had a conversation today with a fella about this. What you're doing is, growth comes through hard times, basically, and so
Hurt the most.
You're
you learn the
creating.
most.
Yeah, you're creating events, and this goes back to Stoicism too. Stoics used to do this back in ancient Rome. But, you put yourself in hard situations. They could be physical challenges or, Seneca the Elder was the richest man in Rome. And he used to dress as a homeless person and go live among the homeless for like a week just to put himself in that situation. So if he ever lost all his money, he's already he knows what
Already
to
had it back
expect.
tenfold.
Yeah.
Yes, change we're on change can be good, right? So you avoid stagnation. Let me move on to when I was writing my book, right? You remember how much I was whining about the editing process and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
I whined to you a lot about that, I think.
Yeah. God bless Courtney if she's listening.
Oh gosh. Yeah, because it was so challenging, and creative people, change is dredged to them. It's like, this is my baby. I wrote this. You can't change this. What are you talking about? We need to add this part and move this part around. And oh my God, when Courtney told me I had to rechange or rewrite one of the chat, I was like, oh my God, no. Rewrite it, break it down, destroy it, and rewrite this thing. Why would I do that? It made it what it is. And it's the best book ever. I say with jest, of course. No, it made it so much better when you go through breaking something apart and building it back and adding to it. It had to change, I'm not going to point her out, and she probably won't ever hear this show. I don't know how much my family and friends listen to it. But, I showed the draft before I got into the idea that I was going to do it right and get it fully edited and stuff. I showed it to a friend of mine. You know what she said, Craig?
What's that?
Chris, this is horrible.
Oh, yeah, you told me this story. Yeah, you did. You told me this story.
I was like, oh, what a gut check. Like, what do you mean this is horrible?
Yeah.
And it was because it was completely unedited.
Completely
unedited.
It's an interesting thing you bring up there. It's like, how much change should we make based on what other people who were telling us might be good for us to do? So, for example, in your case, Courtney's an expert in books and editing and writing. If I were writing a book and she told me that I needed to change some stuff around, I'd be like, okay, cool, I'll do it. Because I know that she knows what she's talking about. So, if I see a friend of mine and they're not active and their health's deteriorating, and I say kindly, hey, man, you might ought to think about doing some exercise and maybe changing your diet a little bit.
Neil, is he talking about me right now? Why are you looking at me like that, man?
Then, that's somebody speaking out of concern,
right.
And perhaps maybe it's time for me to make a change. So what are your thoughts on situations like that?
I got a perfect answer for you. It has everything to do with trust, okay? The trust that you have in the person that's giving you that feedback. But here's what people don't think about when it comes to trust. Trust operates on two levels, right? You have to trust a person's intent, number one. And that's usually what people think about. Oh, I trust you or I don't trust you, which, by the way, this is on a continuum. I trust you on a high level, or I trust you on a moderate level, or I trust you on a low level with what you intend. What is your intention in telling this to me, right?
Yeah.
But you also have to trust somebody's ability.
Yeah.
Right? And you can trust their ability on a high level or a low level and everything in between. So if I fall out right now and I'm having a hard time breathing, Craig, I know you love me. I know you care about me. But if you come at me with a broken pen and try to jab it in my neck and say, hey, dude, yo, bro, I'm helping you, man. I'm going to be like, yo, bro, no, we're calling 911, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't trust your ability.
Yeah.
So you have to trust somebody on both levels with what feedback you're getting, and then multiple sources telling you the same things and other things that come to my mind. So
yeah, I guess that's there's a lot to say about that too. The way you speak to people, maybe there's a matter of knowing the person and not putting them on the defensive too, because you talk about your friend who said this is terrible, this sucks. That's kind of harsh, man. Perhaps it was like, hey, Chris, maybe you should do this or that to try to make it better instead of just saying this is terrible.
Right.
But
there's the delivery as well, probably helps.
Yeah, but so that's going to put me on the defensive right away if somebody speaks to me like I'm an idiot, unless they have such credibility that I'm going to listen anyway. What I mean?
This person who did that knows this. She could say anything to me. Anything.
See, that's a different scenario then, right?
It is, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if Warren Buffett looked at my financial portfolio and he said, hey, you moron, why are you doing this? You need to change. I'm going to be like, okay, I'm changing. You know what I'm saying?
You trust his ability
even if he speaks to me like I'm a...
Right, there's compensating factors.
Yeah.
But if Neil tells you, hey, your portfolio sucks, man.
I say, who are you, man? You don't know shit about finance.
You're an idiot. You're right. And you know what? That's seriously, too, I'm glad that you brought this up, and this is coming up in the way that it is, because don't allow your fear of change and all those things we talked about that make change hard to block really good feedback that will come in. And defensiveness probably is a number one or pretty top 5 list of detractors from very good feedback that you'll get a lot.
Yeah, I think that people really should be open to the fact that change is inevitable. One way or the other, things are going to change.
Definitely so.
And we're not always right. Sometimes we need to make a change, I talk about that experience I had with my ex-wife and the marriage counselor.
You've said that several times.
Yeah, we went into that marriage counselor, and I'm thinking, oh, great. He's going to fix this woman. We're going to go home, and things are going to be awesome. And when I left there, I'm like, oh, my God. I got some I need to make some changes, man. A lot of this is my fault.
He did a good job.
He did. And now every time somebody says something to me, I question whether or not what they're saying is the truth.
Stop and pause and consider.
Yeah. If you told me, Craig, you're being a real jerk, I would think, am I really being a jerk? Neil, am I being a jerk? Is he right? You know?
He said yes, everybody.
But really, I mean, maybe I need to make a change. Maybe I am a jerk and I need to lighten up.
Or at least in that moment. I think you're right. It takes a courageous person to be receptive to things changing or people suggesting change and avoid the immediate amygdala telling you, no, this person's telling you you're going to die. Because that's essentially oftentimes what it's doing, if you think about it that way.
Yeah. So
change can be good. Talking about this show, again, we highlighted that. I think this is going to increase energy for, what we do through a therapist's eyes. And I didn't see that when you initially brought that to me. I was like, crap, this sucks. I don't want it to be different. Why is he coming at this? It's a bad time. It never is a good time. And if I would have just closed shop, we're done. Yep, Craig's gone. We're done. It's over. That would have been a horrible way to go about coping with a change, right?
Yeah. Well, think about your office move.
Oh gosh,
you didn't want that to happen. You didn't want that change, right?
That one's still raw, man. It's been a year plus, but it's still a little raw.
I mean, that was a hard change. That was a big move. That was a scramble to find a place.
A way scramble.
And when you found this place, you were like totally not happy with it.
No.
But it turned out to be a good thing, right? This is a great office.
I am literally on my therapy couch right now and feeling like revisiting and getting great therapy advice. Thank you, Craig.
Yeah, this is a great office, and you're paying what? About half of the rent?
Yeah, it worked out.
Yeah, it did. It worked out.
First thing you said when you walked in here was like, hey, this is a pretty good setup for this. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Heck yeah.
And you'll see video on it soon. So, yeah, no, it's absolutely, you're right. It's perfect. I mean, things oftentimes work out way better than we think that they're ever going to be. Creative thought thinkers like myself or people that create things, go back to that editing. You ever hear the phrase, throw the baby out with the bathwater? Well, sometimes people that are very creative hang on to their idea way too much, like I talked about with the book. But, boy, I mean, when you're creating something in your life, you mentioned with your job creating your space, and someone says, hey, wait a minute, boom, blow that up and go this whole different way. I mean, it is a shock to try to engage that. So be careful about your own creativity being bought in so much so that you can't hear that feedback. I think we covered that a little bit. I like this website, The Little Buddha. It's another one that I kind of found in
Tiny Buddha.
Oh, yes. Well, yeah, I guess it is Tiny Buddha. I wrote it wrong. Yeah, it says on the web page there, doesn't it? The tinybuddha.com. They had some cool things about what made change cool. And so in a nutshell, they said personal growth, flexibility, improvements, life values, the snowball effect, which means once you change something, it kind of gains steam and moves in a good direction, strength, progress, opportunities, new beginnings, routines, quote, without change, there would be no butterflies, unquote, come from The Little Buddha. That's cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Without change, there'd be no butterflies. We should make that into a T-shirt or something. So let's transition now in when something's happening and you're changing. Let's talk a little bit about how to cope with it, because I think we've made a case that there are very specific reasons why, this is scary and hard to go through changes. We're explaining how certainly some things can be good that come out of that change. So let's transition and talk about how to cope with it, because there is no doubt about it. I don't think anybody can argue other than change equals stress. Can be positive stress, changes that you choose, but when things change, I think, is it fair to say that 100% of the time there's going to be stress with that?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
I don't know what kind of change you can have that it's not going to stress your system, your routines, your emotions, learning,
your will. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Helplessness. Yeah. A lot goes in there, and it's going to be stressful. And when you got heavy change, such as getting married, oh my gosh. One of the biggest changes I think you can go in life is becoming a parent.
That's a good one.
How on earth, how stressed out can you be?
Yeah, that's a great one.
You know, and oftentimes when those things are changing in combination, like I said when I graduated college, I'm changing my freaking state that I live in. I'm changing my self-identity of being married from being an individual. I'm changing my employment and all of my money and tasks. I mean, those are three pretty big ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It definitely is a big. Parenting is a big change. Family, getting married. I mean, those are huge changes.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do we cope? How do we cope with that is a question I'd like to look at there for a minute. I was actually lost a thought. I was going to go. I had something else I was going to use as an example, but it went away. Maybe it'll come back to me. So there is a whole therapy modality. Have you ever heard of motivational interviewing?
I have not.
All right.
Interviewing?
Motivational interviewing. Look at that book right up there. It's on my shelf. That's one of the books I kept. Motivational interviewing. Second shelf right in the middle.
Yeah, I see that up there.
Yeah. It's kind of a cool concept that I use very much still, especially with substance abuse clients. Motivational interviewing is kind of a modality. If you're a young therapist out there, I would really suggest you check it out because it gives you a really good framework for the topic that we're talking about and how to guide people through it. So it kind of goes from stages of development in that change. And they talk about it being a pre-contemplative stage, right? And that's the first thing that people get into. They start to consider, hey, does something need to be different? No, it can stay the same. Nah, it needs to change. You begin to contemplate this in a way where it's pre-contemplation. Sometimes you don't even really know something's going on, but you feel something's off, right? And it's real wishy and messy, and sometimes it really helps to get that friend who tells you something. Hey, see this, and you are already in a pre-contemplative stage, and then boom, you kind of take notice and you see it, right? And then you move into a circle, right? And the first stage is a contemplation stage. So you're really now contemplating, yeah, this needs to change, this needs to be different. Okay, well, what do I do? So then you move into a determination stage. I've determined it needs to change. This is what I'm going to do to try it. And then you move into the circle of an action stage. And you take some actions, and then you monitor it, see what happens, and then you maintain those changes. And then you can go back into the contemplation stage, if need be. And you go into the determination stage, take another action, get into maintenance. And you can go around in there as you go through, here's a concept for you, Craig, a season of change. Because oftentimes change isn't like, boom. There's a process that you go through. We've been through a therapist's eyes a month or two long process of figuring this out. So once you get solid in that cycle in motivational interviewing, you can exit that circle on the other side of pre-contemplation, and you can really get into a settled, solid, stabilized life change. How cool is that?
That sounds awesome.
Motivational interviewing, right? So there's a whole theory set that's out there on how to kind of help that motivation develop, foster it, grow it, work with somebody. It's one of the books I kept for a reason. I got actually rid of a lot of my books lately, man. You should seen how many books I had when I got this new furniture. It was ridiculous.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. I actually got rid of my human development book. It was so sun-stained and, dead.
What'd you do with them, man?
I actually just threw it away. I was in a moving mood.
Dude.
I know.
Never throw away a book, ever.
I really felt...
Take them to Goodwill or something.
I felt conflicted.
Yeah.
Well, it was copyrighted in 1995 or something.
Still, somebody could get some benefit out of that.
Human development. Anyway, okay, so let's move on. What do you think, Craig? Do change by yourself?
No.
Yeah.
No, definitely not.
No. Why?
Well, I mean, you need support from other people. You need advice from other people. Maybe other people have input to help you avoid pitfalls. Or if you fall into a pitfall, help you get out of that pitfall.
Probably will fall into pits.
Yeah, I mean, you need to surround yourself with people who can help you get through that change and come out on the other side better.
I think when you try to do something alone, you're just making a fundamental error.
Yeah.
I believe very much in friends. You got something going on. You got a lane.
Yeah, yeah.
You're going to be in stress when things change. We just said that.
Yeah.
I don't want things just bouncing around in my own head alone when I'm stressed, because you know what kind of decisions I make?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, what was it, Chris? It was, I guess, late 2016, or maybe it was 17. I created a mastermind group, and Chris is a member of that group. And what a mastermind is, it's a group of guys who come together, and we've developed a trust in the group, so anybody can bring any issue they have going on in life, whether it's business, family, spiritual, whatever it is. We also study content, so we're growing in there professionally, spiritually, physically. But how valuable
Some of us are growing physically.
Yeah, I hear you. How valuable are those conversations, Chris?
It's invaluable.
Yeah.
Really. And we just talked about that not too long ago in the group. I mean, at one point we was being considered to close it, shut it down. I mean, what reactions did you get?
Yeah.
No!
Yeah, that's
oh gosh.
In my practice, that's a product I'm going to offer. I'm going to expand what we're doing in that mastermind and create additional masterminds of 10 people. Probably going to be men at first, and I'll figure out how to work in ladies down the road. But I mean, that's a product I'm going to create, and I'm going to facilitate those groups. And the idea there is to develop that trust. And then when you're going through a crisis, you've got the advice. You got the advice and counsel of 10 other people.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And I've used it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
when I'm working with somebody in substance abuse trying to get sober, I actually learned from our good friend, local therapist here, Jeff Shook, kind of taught me, and I've adopted the mentality that I'll tell clients, if you're in my room working with substance abuse, addiction issues, I'll go right up to the line that he created. But he created a line that he would say, and I think it's okay if I say this, he's retired now anyway, but he wouldn't work with you. He would fire you as a client if you refused to get into some type of group experience.
Yeah, I mean,
and he would explain the reasons for that are kind of what you were just saying. It makes the change in recovery that you're trying to make so that much more likely to have less recidivism into relapse.
Yeah.
And so he only had to fire like 2 or 3 people in his career.
Yeah. Yeah. And Narcotics Anonymous, the Alcoholics Anonymous, they have such a success.
Oh, yeah.
And that's because they're surrounded by other people.
It's the best thing that is the most successful for the most amount of people in recovery. And, church groups, small groups, support groups. I mean, the Autism Speaks large group. I mean, groups of people get together trying to create change. Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
Yeah.
Right? In the 80s. Now, kids nowadays are like, oh, yeah, I can drive when I'm high. But they've figured out they can't drive when they're intoxicated from alcohol. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah, and it gives, I read success books all the time, and, Think and Grow Rich. He talks about the mastermind. That's probably where that term came from. But those things go back as far as Ben Franklin. I mean, Ben Franklin had a group of men that he got together with. But every successful person will tell you, in order to be successful, you have to build a team.
Yep.
I mean, the SEAL teams, they call themselves the teams, So, I mean, yeah, you got to have people in your life who can help you get through change.
Good transition, Mr. Grave. Letter C from the neurology article, developing a mindset of change. I thought that was cool. So I really think you're going to enjoy that article that I found out there. The latter part of it talked about a neurological mindset of change. They call it a growth mindset, right? Or in the SEALs, they call it evolving, right? You always want to evolve. In your work, I want to tee you up here, front sight focus. Right?
Yeah.
What are these things, these concepts you'll find repeated in different venues?
Yeah, in Mark Devine's book, The Way of the SEAL, there's a chapter called Break Things. And what that means is you're constantly changing your processes to try to make them better. So, Chris, you may have a line of clients at the door, things may be going great. Mark's advice might be shake that up somehow.
Holy cow, that's scary.
See if you can make it even better.
Holy crap.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So he's constantly evolving. The idea is to constantly change processes, to break things. You think things are going great? Well, let's break it and see if we can make it better.
And I did that on purpose. Like, that is scary. I've got this practice is great. What do you mean change the practice?
Yeah.
It's been good for 10 years we've been in operation plus. But there is real truth to that.
Absolutely.
There's a struggle there. There's a big struggle there. Oh, man, I forgot to silence my technology, man. Sorry about that. So there's a really great struggle there, and I can't just make that point enough. The fear, the struggle with change, redefining that it's good, and then we need to cope with it in these ways that we're talking about. Embrace change and take control of life around you with serenity to accept the things you cannot change, the courage to change the things that you can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah.
You ever hear that prayer?
Oh, yeah, that's the serenity prayer.
I use that
obviously.
all the time.
Yeah.
And if you can really layer into that, I use that in my therapy all the time. Because there really are some things that we cannot control.
There really are. And there's lots of things, there's lots of things we can't control, right?
Right.
I mean, look at this pandemic. Who had goals?
That's where I was when I couldn't think of my
Who had
thought.
goals for 2020?
Right.
I know I did. You know what? Most of them didn't get done because the country shut down.
Yeah, but your financial goals
Goals exploded. That was an opportunity. I was able to save a lot of money, really exceed my financial goals. My goal of running 3 Spartan races, and that didn't happen,
Right.
We just had a gas crisis in the Southeast, That throws a monkey wrench into things. So there's all these things going on that we have absolutely zero control over, and we have to be able to accept and adapt when those kind of things happen.
Totally.
And, I couldn't go to the gym anymore. So luckily for me, I have a home gym. Never missed a workout,
Right.
because I'm able to adapt and do something different.
Control the things you can control.
Yeah, there's a term. I think it's a military term, but it's called VUCA. Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous.
Right.
And that's the world we live in. And when you live in a world like that, things are going to happen, man.
Absolutely.
And you have to be able to take them head on and figure it out.
The serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's where my head was, like I said earlier, when I lost my thought. And the thought was, and I'll implant it here, I'm really glad you're still following us on this episode, because I'm going to give a foreshadow. I'm going to give a forewarning. I'm going to give a little bit of advice to take this segment that we're talking about, work towards how to cope with this change, because you know what's going to happen here in about 3 months, Craig? I'm going to call it and predict it, right? Summer, no one's going to be home this summer. And come August and September, what's going to happen? Kids, they're going to go back to school. Adults, parents, you're going back to work. I already see things slipping back into, and the result of people's major stress in those changes changing back. I don't think people are really prepared for that. I think we might struggle more coming out of this whole pandemic thing than we did going into it.
Interesting thought.
Because people have readapted. We've accomplished homeostasis. We've gotten grounded in what we do. I mean, there are people right now that are, fully vaccinated, and the suggestions are going around is, hey, if you're still uncomfortable, continue to wear your mask. Well, you're wearing a mask for something that you're 98% vaccinated from. This is the numbers. Now, I'm not going in political with the masks, everybody. Please don't hear that.
Man, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask.
Yeah, sure.
If you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear the damn mask.
Right.
But mind your own business.
Right. And people are struggling with it. Can I go back out? I haven't been out for a long. That's a crazy change. Listen to this. That's a crazy change for me to go to the restaurant with my mother, who's 72 years old, it feels like.
Yeah. Has she had the vaccine?
Actually, she just got fully vaccinated a couple weeks ago, or a couple days ago. I got a note.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy for her. But I mean, like I say, it's just, this is all, you're going to have to cope with this. And people are going to be tripping out in September 2021. Because they're not going to be coping well with all this newness of the oldness coming back to be newness.
Man, I'm ready for it. I'm ready to get back to business.
Oh, I cannot wait to go to a baseball game live. That's going to happen.
Oh, yeah, man, me too.
Actually, No, in a couple days. Anyway, let me move on. Embrace changes and take control of your life around you with a serenity prayer. That's right. Embrace and recognize that things, quote, are not changing. How about that for a coping mechanism? When you're going through a change, is everything changing? No. No, not at all. It can create some stability when you create a focus point. In my book, I talk a lot about focus points, and I talk a lot about it in therapy with people. Cognitive behavioral therapy, right? What do you focus on? Well, how's your cognition? What is it looking at? Well, when things are changing and you're rattled by that, take a look around at your life.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Things aren't all different.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
One of the things I like to teach people is to set goals and live intentionally in 7 areas of your life, right? Career, financial, relationships, health, family. Oh, Lord, now I'm going to draw a blank and not remember the last 2. But the point there is if you're living intentionally, you're setting goals in those 7 areas, normally change is not going to hit all 7 of those areas, right?
Probably pretty hard.
So if I've got good friends, if I'm personal development and social was the other 2.
Gotcha.
So if I'm staying healthy, I'm working out 3 times a week, I'm eating good, and I got good friends I hang out with on the weekends, I'm taking care of my family, I'm doing my spiritual practice, whatever my spiritual practice is. If I get fired from my job, then I still have those other 6. Well, that may hit finances too, right? It could hit 2 areas, but I still got 5 areas of my life that I've taken care of.
You're still stable.
I'm still good in those 5 areas.
Mm-hmm.
And if I got good friends, they're going to help me through the job search process, hopefully, like we just talked about earlier,
Right.
And I'll come out of that, hopefully, and I'll be one of those folks who said, man, getting fired from that job was the best thing that ever happened to me.
It'll happen.
You know what I mean? And that's just
that's
one
religion
example.
is another area. If you have a particular faith tradition, man, that is a solidifying feature in people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
God is not changing.
Yeah.
Never changing.
Right.
And so again, the stabilization.
But I may have drama in my church. I may have to move churches.
Yeah.
And that may affect my social circles and those kind of things. But I've still got my health, my job, my finances. I've still got other areas of focus that I can fall back on and be stable in.
Couldn't agree more. Another one, and you mentioned it actually there a little bit in the middle of that. Here we go, man. Cornerstone of mental health. You're an old schooler now. What's the cornerstone of mental health?
Oh, that's self-care.
Yeah, man. It's right here, too. When you're going through stress and you have things changing, maybe a couple or multiple areas of your life, like you just said, is changing, well, you got to do the self-care, fun, relaxing, enjoyable activities that distracts you from that stuff, and then you plug back in when you need to. Also, physical care. Cornerstone of physical care, this is your quote, is...
Cornerstone of physical care?
Yeah, you kind of said it was sleep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I learned that from you.
And breath, I would say now, since I've learned more, but yeah.
Breathing. Yeah, you got to do the physical care, and you also got to do the relationship care, fun, relaxing, enjoyable activities with people, so you engage people. And we talked about that before, but it works with the 3 cares.
Yeah.
It's crucial to eat well. It's crucial to get busy and active. It's crucial to take care of these things that otherwise you're going to flounder through change time.
That's right.
Right. Track the positives that are happening when change occurs. Again, change can be an event, but oftentimes it's a period of time. You're going through a season of change.
Mm-hmm.
So, you want to create hopefulness when something's different, and look at how something's better. Track that. Little piece here's better, little piece there's better. Hey, I'm feeling better about this whole change process that we've got going on. And suddenly, as that builds on, there's the snowball effect again. If you literally write things down that are positive as things are changing, how do you think your mental health is going to be affected?
Yeah, we've talked about keeping a journal and writing down things you're grateful for and the jar of awesomeness. And we've talked about a lot of stuff about writing things down like that.
Go ahead of the change. Right? Get ahead of it. We do know that some things are going to change. I just kind of gave you an idea here in August, September. Things are going to change, and you're going to be stressed out. Go ahead and start changing those things a little bit so you're not slam dunked into it. I think you can get out ahead of things and then reasonably anticipate how things are going to be different, that's a way to cope. You also feel a little bit more control of your life and whatnot. Oh, here's another big one that came to me towards the end of this. Avoid social media, right? When you're changing, you're already fearful that things are going to be worse, says your amygdala, or you might die, like we said. Why would you want to go look at everybody else that's got everything going on perfectly in their life so that you feel worse and more fearful about the change that you're going through? Turn it down, slow it down, don't keep up with the Joneses. Understand your life is your life, their life is theirs, and they also have pitfalls as well as you do. Just, it's funny, Craig, that this, in the day and age that we live in, that this stuff is so much affected by the computer technology and social media stuff that we have, right? Shut it off when things are changing. That means maybe nobody should be on Facebook in September. How about that? I'm not making that suggestion to everybody, but you get the point. It will decrease your anxiety tenfold. And then lastly, some might disagree with me here. And I'm curious, Craig, what you think about this. Think of your boy that you had us reading material from. What was his name? Jocko, right? How is his attitude towards resting after or during change times?
I've never heard him speak specifically about change, but he speaks about rest. I mean, you need rest days, man.
I think what I was going there for is that the controversial piece, people are kind of constantly talking about, oh, yeah, change and progress and move, evolve. You're constantly moving. I do love the quote, a plant is either growing or dying. You can't just sit still. So you got to, there's no rest. Go to the next thing and go to the next thing. We don't need rest. It's just, stuff's changed. Don't whine about it. Keep going. Move forward. Well, you want to be active.
Yeah.
But rest, as you say, rest is important after you've gone through such, sometimes dramatic change.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, after you moved offices, I'm sure you needed a rest after that. That was a pretty big deal for you.
Yeah, it was.
And whatever it is, I think you're referring to that Jocko thing where he wrote the book.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a funny Instagram video.
Right.
He said, yeah, I just finished my Way of the Warrior Kid book. Appreciate everybody's support. It was a long road. So what am I going to do now? Take a vacation? Maybe rest a little bit? No, I got more to do, and I'm going to get after it.
He constantly, get after it. I'm like, oh, my God, okay.
Yeah, no, I think that Jocko probably recognizes that people need rest. I think, as far as the daily grind and routine, I've heard him say, if you feel like you're tired, then use your discipline and get through that. Then if you still feel tired the next day, then take a day off.
Right.
But I hadn't heard him speak specifically about change. But, if you're a Bible-believing person, God says take a rest. On the seventh day, God rested.
Absolutely. So we are winding down to a close. I think this has been helpful. I think this will be a highly listened show because, man, the title, Why is Change So Hard, man? People are tuning into this, and we've had a lot of it this year. For sure, in dramatic ways. We're going through some changes with Through Therapist's Eyes with you, Craig, and once again here at the end, I've appreciated your investment, your time, your energy, your passion for what we do. It's been really, really, really cool to work with you. Glad that you're not going to go completely away. It'll be, I don't know if you did the math or something, but it'll be actually like 4 shows a year or something, so it'll be significantly less, but we'll look forward to you kind of kicking back here with us in sometime in the future.
Looking forward to it, man.
All right, change is good. Let's do it, right?
Hoo-yah.
Hoorah. All right, guys, welcome to Through a Therapist's Eyes. We are going to see you again next week. Stay tuned, all right? Take care. We'll be sticking around here with you for sure for a long time to come. Take care.